Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Quality Shot Boxing. I'm Ali, and in today's discussion, we'll be talking about the upcoming fight between Tyson the Gypsy King Fury and Derek Delboy Chisora. And also, we'll be talking about other fights that negotiations haven't made the fights happen, but could they be fights that could be made in the future, such as Fury Joshua or Fury Usyk or Usyk, Joshua 3. But before we get into the discussion, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below, guys. It really helps us put out great, meaningful content for you all. But yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts of this fight was, I can't say I was surprised, but at the same time I was. And what I mean by that is, I mean, we all knew a fight was going to happen in December, so-called big or a fight with a big name in December. Whether that is Joshua, whether that is Usyk, whether that is Fury. Actually, no. To be honest, I retract the Usyk comment because Usyk said he wants some time off to spend with his family. It's understandable. So I would say, that we were expected to have a fight with a huge name in boxing, especially in the heavyweight division, whether it's Fury or Joshua. I think the whole negotiations between Joshua and Fury was a failed one. As in, initially, I always thought that, for a couple of years back, I used to think that, both sides were so-called ducking each other. But I mean, in recent years, when we've seen Fury's behavior with Wilder, how he was quickly able to make the fights, quickly gave another few fights, quickly signed contracts, for other fights. That made me think that, Fury is not necessarily always chasing the money. He's actually chasing the fights, and that's his legacy. Whereas I think the Joshua, from Joshua's side, I think he was more so controlled by Hearn, and I think Joshua himself wanted to take these fights, but I don't think Eddie Hearn and Matchroom would have allowed that to happen in such a short space of time. As in, they wanted to try milk as much money out of it as possible. Don't get me wrong. From a business and commercial perspective, that makes every sense to do. Makes perfect sense to do so. But from a sporting perspective, from the legacy perspective, it doesn't, and it kind of destroys the credibility of both fighters. Well, I say both fighters, but especially Joshua's side. So I think the failed negotiations were. I mean, I understand that Fury's team sent over a contract, and Joshua's team said Eddie Hearn responded back saying, they sent us terms that weren't exactly favorable. I can understand that as your duty as a boxing promoter, but at the same time, if your fight, how often will you be able to have these fights, especially considering the current situation that Joshua is in now? Having said that, from now coming on to Fury's side, I think Fury's behavior in the past year or so, where he's constantly going back on his words, saying, I'm going to retire, I've retired, now I'm back, now I'm retired, I'm not fighting anyone. It makes you think, what the hell is going on? Are you retired? Are you out? Are you in? What's happening? What's the situation? The thing that really kind of upset me or, annoyed me, really peed me off with Fury was, I think, after the Joshua Usyk fight, where Derek Chisora went up to him. Well, I think it wasn't after that fight, it was after the Joyce Parker fight. I think it was the Joyce Parker fight, yeah. Where correct me if I'm wrong, where Chisora went up to Fury and asked him, when are you gonna fight? When are you gonna, fight me? Fury's response was allegedly, you haven't signed the contract to fight me. Chisora then responded to him saying, but you haven't sent the contract. And Fury's response to that was, you don't need a contract. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, I don't understand that. Like, I have a lot of love and respect for Tyson Fury. I think he's by far the best heavyweight currently, and potentially of all time, who knows? But I really rate him highly. I rank him so highly. So for him to be acting this way and talking like this to Chisora makes me think, has taken away some of the, high regard, the respect that I have for him. It doesn't make sense. Why are you making that stuff? Like, why are you saying that? Granted, he signed the contract, and kudos to him. But why would you say that in the first place? That makes no sense. Absolutely silly by him to say that. But, I mean, having said that, as for the whole fight, many people, some of my closest friends and people within the wider boxing community, They say that this fight is not worth it. It's dull. It's boring. I can understand their sentiment, and believe me, I do. But at the same time, I think Chisora has improved more so in the past few years than he was previously. As in when they fought the second time back in 2014, I think Chisora's come miles ahead. Has improved so much since then. And I think now he poses a greater threat to Fury than he did back then. Weird as that sounds, I genuinely believe that, and I think that with all the all the odds being in favor of Fury, and everyone saying Fury's going to win this, Fury's going to decimate Chisora. Don't get me wrong, I think that's probably the most likely thing to happen. Having said that, if Chisora causes an upset, at the same time I wouldn't really be surprised. I mean, this reminds me of, I wasn't alive back then, but this reminds me of the sentiment that people felt around the Tyson Douglas fight. People completely like dismissed Buster Douglas, and he ended up knocking out Mike Tyson. And we saw with fights that we expected Fury to win and win comfortably, we saw he was bloodied up by, I think, Otto Wallin, who at the time wasn't a highly ranked fighter. And I think Chisora is ranked higher up than Otto Wallin at the moment. I could be wrong, but I need to double check that. So I think if that happens, I can't really be surprised. As in, it will be a shock, don't get me wrong, but I think that it won't really be a surprise. And to be honest, in boxing, all it takes is one punch, and especially within the heavyweight division, one power punch, like one punch, could end the fight like that. I mean, we saw Tyson Fury and Wilder. I think, and I've said this in previous videos, that Fury was robbed of that first fight, and I think he was absolutely dominating Wilder. But one punch is all it took to drop Fury. Maybe that could happen again with Chisora. Maybe Fury will get up. Maybe Fury won't. Who knows? That's something we have to wait and see for about another month and a bit. So overall, I think this fight could be a very interesting fight. I feel like it's starting to become my catchphrase. But I think this fight is something that, it's better than nothing, in my opinion, rather than having no fights at all. And I can understand when people say, "Oh, there doesn't need to be a fight anymore. Just hold on to it." I can understand that. But at the same time, I'm of the opinion, if I had to choose both sides, I would want a fight in December. There was all hyped up with the Joshua Fury fight that was meant to happen. So I was thinking, at least we have a somewhat suitable replacement, because realistically, all the high grade fighters won't be available. Usyk won't be available. Joshua won't be available. Who else? Wilder's already fought 3 times, been beaten 3 times. Ruiz will be interesting, but I think, I understand he's already signed terms and contracts with Wilder, and that will be a very interesting fight. That'll be a very, very, very good fight. See how the trajectory of both fighters will go after it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what goes on. But yeah, I'll just give you a few more moments before I carry on. Let me just grab a bottle of water. A cup of water, sorry. Okay, I'm back. So I think after this fight, whichever way it goes, okay, let's presume that we go with what the majority of people think and say and feel, and that Fury wins. I think the future of the heavyweight division is kind of narrowing down in terms of who's the top name. Before, we had a couple of years back, we had the Fury, we had Joshua, we had Wilder, we had all 3 fighters sort of in the same breadth of each other, so to speak. But I think after the losses that Wilder and Joshua have incurred, I think Fury is now in a position whereby he can maintain, his standing as number 1. And I think, if he beats Chisora, the next logical fight would have to be Usyk, just to unify the title. I mean, it's never before been done in the history of heavyweight boxing, all four heavyweight titles to be unified. So, and I think that would most certainly just cement Fury standing as quite possibly one of the all-time heavyweight greats, in the top 10, if not top 15 at the very least. I think, I mean, if Usyk wins it, Tyson Fury's first loss, how would Usyk go? I think if Usyk wins that potential fight, that super fight, it will cement his place as being another all-time heavyweight great. I mean, he's beaten Joshua. He's won the titles off him, before, and he's won it again at Joshua's home ground, in London. So I think that's also gonna just cement Usyk's legendary status, and he gives me, if he was able to, and to be honest, even now he gives off very much Holyfield fights where he's gone up, I think, from the cruiserweight division to the heavyweight and won the world title. So that'll be good to see. I think Ruiz Wilder will be. See, if Wilder wins, could he stake a claim for fighting Fury again? Could he fight Usyk? It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Could Usyk handle Wilder's power? I mean, it's very hard to say yes because we are all just aware of Wilder's inhumane power and strength. I mean, Fury's able to handle it. I mean, he's got a granite chin. If Ruiz wins, could Ruiz fight Fury? I think, to be honest, if they were to fight, I think Fury will be able to pick out Ruiz. Ruiz is a banger. He can bang, like he can throw them punches. We've seen it with Joshua. But I think he won't trouble Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is not afraid of being hit, whereas I think someone like Joshua and Wilder, both of them are afraid to get hit by power punches, and they hesitate. And we've seen it in the previous fights. I mean, with the live watch along we had for Wilder and Helenius, and even in my last video, the review of the fight, as in I mentioned that there were moments where Wilder looked like he was hesitating. So I think in terms of being able to handle such a power hit, I think Fury won't hesitate with that. And I think if he was to fight Usyk, it would be very much a chess game. It would be a battle of the boxing IQs, because Usyk is very much, an in-out, so incredible with his angles, whereas Fury is just too unorthodox. So it would be like it'd be a clash of styles of the smart boxer versus the unorthodox boxer. Smart in the sense that how neat and slick and clean, how quickly he's able to move. Whereas the boxing IQs are absolutely ridiculous. Like, in my opinion, the best boxing IQs in the heavyweight division, and quite possibly up there with the rest of the boxing world, alongside Vasily Lomachenko. So it'll be a good battle of them, and I think ultimately the battle would be between Fury and Usyk, not just because of they both hold the titles, and not just because they're both undefeated, but I think whoever wins that potential clash, that potential fight, would ultimately have the rightful claim to be the best heavyweight in the world. And I would say this even if Usyk didn't have the titles. I think the way Usyk fights is absolutely phenomenal. He's had 340, 320, something stupid, like 300 plus fights in the amateur division. That's more so than most of the heavyweights combined, both in the amateur and professional careers. So that's testament to him. So I think that'll be a good battle. I think Joshua is now at the moment where he knows he isn't the number one. He's not the A side anymore. And I can kind of sympathize with Team Fury in terms of negotiations, how they didn't give him, what Joshua demanded. I can understand that. And to be honest, if I was in Fury's camp, I would say the same thing. But nevertheless, I do think that Joshua is someone who still holds the name. And I think he should do what Tyson Fury did after the first Wilder fight, where he fought Wallin and Sefer Safari, I think, the German fella. He wasn't German, I think Romanian fella. So I think Joshua should fight those kind of fighters. I think Joshua should fight someone like Derek Chisora, perhaps. It'll be interesting to see, because they both are trained at Finchley. So it'll be good to see, that little rivalry. I would say maybe another fight with White. I'm not sure. A fight with Parker. Maybe a fight with Ortiz. Another Pulev fight. I don't know. He needs to fight, a so-called, with all due respect, a lower grade fighter. Build his confidence back up, maybe at least two, if not three fights, before he can ultimately challenge, the top two fighters, whether that's Usyk, whether that's Fury, or maybe even fight Wilder, depending on if Joshua fights another 2-3 fights with so-called lower grade fighters, and Wilder wins against Ruiz. I think both of them should fight to essentially close the chapter on that particular book that should have been closed a couple of years back when both had the titles, when both were undefeated as well. And I think that if Joshua wins that, I think that would vastly improve his confidence and his fighting skills going into the fight, because now he can handle the bang. Now he can handle being punched by one of the hardest hitting heavyweights of all time. So if he was to take that to fight Wilder, beat Wilder, and then go into a fight against Usyk or Fury, I think he will have a hell of a lot more confidence. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it's all well and good for us to discuss this and to speculate as to which fights would happen, how we anticipate fights to go. But it's all down to how the boxers, whether first of all the boxers agree to it, whether they cut all this crap about the negotiations and all of that stuff, and they just get down to business. Because ultimately, they are entertainers. We are meant to be entertained by the boxing spectacle. So I'll leave it at that. That's my take on things. That's my so-called 2 pence on this matter. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in, for watching this. Once again, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below, and hopefully see you guys in the next video.